right. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Mars, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Hope that you're having a fabulous day, a fabulous Wednesday, and hopefully your weekend's been going fabulous all the way on through the weekend. Again, my name is Preacher Mars. Let me welcome everybody to the Shout Out Show. I want to welcome all our first-time viewers, those that are returning. I also want to make a special notation for our Shout Out Show superstars who are normally in the building when we call out our roll call, if you will. I want to take a special moment to acknowledge and really applaud the launch of the new Masjid Bilal in Los Angeles. They had a successful grand opening. I'm very proud of all you brothers out there. May Allah continue to bless you, increase you. Also in New Jersey this weekend, I believe it's Newark, we're going to have a time to be grateful. Make sure that you check out a time to be grateful if you're in the New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia area. If you're anywhere in the vicinity and you got a ticket and you got some I want to say some initiative, go support the Muslim Journal, one of our most important publications in this community. Shout out to Sister Nisa as well. Today's topic, brothers and sisters, is warning: they are inventing sexual terrorists. Now, let me explain to you where this is coming from before we get in the mix of it. Where this is coming from is doing some research and beginning to look at what are the new tactics that are coming out of this whole Gaza thing. And I say this because the new tactics that are coming out of Gaza and the press coverage and media coverage are not new. They are revisits, if you will. They are recycled things that have happened in our own country in regards to African Americans, in regards to Native Americans, in regards to Latinos. We're seeing this thing happen over and over again. In the latest public relations war to justify what's going on in Gaza, you now have old tactics, which are not old tactics. They are revisited tactics that are being put into the situation. The aspect of being able to rewrite narrative is a very peculiar thing. An extremely peculiar thing. If you do your homework, if you have the time you do your homework, you'll understand that some of the movements that you're seeing, particularly now, come out of course, the Nazi Holocaust handbook. But what is interesting is the Zionist handbook is very close to that. And what does that mean, brothers and sisters, when I'm saying this? And this may ruffle some feathers. That history, that playbook comes out of the United States playbook. Now, many people are not going to understand what I'm about to say, and that's fine. Because this is not a conversation that happens all the time. I think it's important that we go deep and begin to understand where a lot of this oppression, I want to say the commercialization of oppression, the militarization of race, the militarization of religion, goes back to what happened here in the United States. Slavery, if you will, has laid this incredible blueprint for what we're seeing now. However, we don't acknowledge that. You're not going to understand what's going on now. And when it comes out, not only will it come to you as being new, it'll come to you as being something that is insurmountable. Like you don't have the data and nomenclature to address what's going on. Thus, I'm taking a little bit of time out of the schedule to, I guess, prime the pump a little bit for the conversation that we're going to have. Right now, sexualization and sexual assault are something that are on everybody's radar. Whether you're watching the thing with P. Diddy, whether you watch the thing with Me Too, Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, Jamie Foxx, everybody now is having to revisit their behavior in terms of, was it sexually overtly sexual? Not even that in some regards. Did my sexuality make somebody uncomfortable? Now, this is not to diminish the many legitimate issues about sexual assault. I'm not doing that. However, it must be said that some of these cases are not legitimate. Some of these cases are fluff for another way. We are beginning to see this, and therefore the title of the show is they are inventing sexual terrorists, which comes from the fact, brothers and sisters, that now it is being put out that Hamas, who's done a bunch of things that are horrific, wrong, not according to this religion, but now you're having someone say that they were sexually assaulting the hostages. When I read this, I said, wait a minute. What I have to believe is that everybody in Hamas said that this was okay. That even the people who support Hamas will say this was okay, and you're not going to find that kind of support. You're not going to find that some kind of support in the Muslim neighborhood, Muslim community, and even in non-Muslim communities going, this is not part of our religion. However, it's being introduced through these different channels in the media, and I think it needs to be addressed. Because if it can happen here, right now, it can happen back here in the United States. I guarantee, when I start putting pieces together, brothers and sisters, I'm hoping that everybody's going to stick with me, because this is really, really important. Because this ties into things like funding. This ties into things like military support. This ties into things with boycotts. This ties into things with treaties that are never honored. This is a situation. So listen, I don't want you to go anywhere. Please stay and come back. Come back. Just come back. We'll be right here, back here on the Shout Out Show on Preacher Moss. Don't you move. We're talking about they are inventing sexual terrorists. Don't you move. All right, everybody, we're back here on the Shout Out Show. Before we get started, I want to give some shout outs to, we call them the Shout Out Show family, the soldiers. I want to give a shout out to Sister Reed. Sister Reed, appreciate you. Thank you for all you do and help me out when I'm on the road, helping with my mom. May Allah continue to bless you. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Blessing to you, Derek, Jawan, and your whole family and your extended family. May they be joyful and blissful in this time of year. And may you have a happy holiday season. Also want to give a shout out to my main man. And that's Sister Ree right there giving us a shout out. I want to give a shout out to our Canadian envoy to the show. My main man, Altaf Rashid, comes in every day from, every show he comes in from Toronto, Canada. We call him Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down. Always here, making sure the quality of the show is good on this side of the border and that side of the border, my dear brother. Hope you're doing well. Shout out. We're less than 100 days for Ramadan. I just want people to remember that. Ramadan is around the corner. So don't say I didn't tell you. 90-some days out. All right. Want to give a shout out to my main man, my brother, big brother Bilal Salahuddin and his queen sister, Sonia Salahuddin. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, sir. And hey, you know what, man? Congratulations. They went on a cruise and they came back and had a good time. Actually, I guess you had a good cruise. They sent me some. I saw some pictures on Instagram, man. You were living it up. Got to see comedian Kiwi Rogers. Shout out to Kiwi Rogers, man. He's been funny a long time, bro. That brother's funny and just witty, physical comic, man. But he's been doing it for a long time. Shout out to him. Glad you got to check him out. Okay. All right, and we got my main man, Eric Carter. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Beloved, all the way from South Carolina. What's going on with you, young fella? Glad you could tune in. This is going to be one of them shows, man. So I'm not saying go ahead and get a pen and paper, but I'm going to tell everybody, please follow what I'm talking about as much as you can, because I really spent some time trying to figure out what this is. All right. So let's get to it. Let's get to it. They are inventing sexual terrorists. The reason why they are inventing sexual terrorists is that you can't have predatory terrorists. Predatory terrorists do not fit the mold, meaning you see them, they are predators, they see you, they're natural predators anyway, so it doesn't make any sense. It's being redundant. That's like saying predator, it doesn't work. But sexual terrorists is something that's been advanced for a number of years. The idea that a group of people, a cause of people, a generation of people, at one point in time, a gender or religious identity of people, somehow, somewhere, created a threat. And in that threat, it allowed people to develop legislation, defenses, budgets to confront those things, to be able to viscerally and physically confront these things for our own protection. I was watching and I've been reading, and if you put up Hamas and sexual assault, you're going to get a bunch of things that come down. Now, Hamas will admit to bombing, they'll admit to blowing up stuff, they admitted to taking hostages. Never in the history of Hamas have they okayed rape. Let's just call it what it is. They never okayed rape. They never said rape was okay. But now you hear stories of Hamas with these hostages. Now, somehow, they are rapists. And this is important because I remember in one of our presidential elections, 45, better known as former President Donald Trump, talked about Latinos as rapists. He put it in his line that they're violent offenders, they're rapists. You see what I'm saying? What you do when you do that, what does that do? It creates a connection to history. And that connection to history is something that you really can't overlook. Because the biggest group of rapists, the biggest group of sexual assault people, the biggest group of serial pedophiles, if you will, serial pedophiles, are the oppressors. Are the oppressors. Let me tell you something about history in the United States. You know, right now they're trying to kill all the history books and they're trying to tear pages out and da-da-da-da. You know, for a lot of years, when we talked about the master-slave relationship, the domination and the sexual violation of slaves was largely these slave owners violating black women, violating their black women. Well, let me tell y'all something. And they don't put it in the history books. But there's another part of that story, and that is the sexual violation of male slaves. People go, preach, why isn't it? Because you know what? When they were documenting that stuff, and there wasn't a word called homosexuality. It was called disciplining your slave. It was called, what's the word? Getting them to comply. It was a part of everyday discipline, and they don't talk about that type of stuff. And I think it's interesting because the part of history that we're leaving out has been left out anyway. They're trying to alleviate that, but they don't talk about what that is. You see, we're led in the United States to believe that there's a dominant majority. There is not. There's a dominant minority. And the dominant minority leads the rest of the people to believe that they're part of this dominant majority, and they are not. They're powerless. They don't make political decisions. They don't develop policy. What you are is a bottom feeder to a system that doesn't want you anyway. It merely tolerates you. So what we have now in creating sexual terrorists is important because if it can happen in Gaza, it can happen here. See, there was a long time ago during the slave movement with the abolitionists, they had something called miscegenation. And miscegenation is, you know, this word about people interracial marriages. Interracial marriages. Now, a lot of people don't know that back in the day, the abolitionists they advocated for interracial marriages. They thought that it was going to create a different type of spawn, a different kind of human being, a different a gene of human excellence. And they did that. But down south, it was flipped. That this sexual engagement somehow would ruin, if you will. You've heard this before. It would ruin bloodlines. And the threat of a black man, a black slave, and a slave that couldn't have no power anyway, a slave that you've been beating to death anyway, somehow has energy to want to be with a white woman. During slavery. It makes absolutely no sense. Thus, it didn't matter because that trope stuck. It sticks today that the black man is somehow a potential violent offender to white femininity in the United States, to white womanhood. And I can go through all. I got a book. I'm not going to show it, but I have a book, and it's a pictorial history of all the lynchings here in the United States. It details pretty much all the lynchings in the United States. I can't even look at the book because it just upsets me. But there's a book, and a lot of those books, a lot of those pictures have to do with white women. That somehow this man was a threat. Now, what you have today in the news, do your homework, is that Hamas is being framed as a sexual terrorist. That they somehow violated the virtues of Israeli women. Don't forget this one. Israeli women and Israeli children. So the argument is being developed now that somehow, like you're talking about miscegenation between a white and a black, and or a white and a Latino intermarrying, the case is being made now that religion cannot coexist in Gaza. That religion cannot coexist. Let me tell you something. I watched a video of a young man who said he was a former Zionist, and he talked about he felt, growing up when he was in the spell of Zionism, that these people were trying to kill me at all costs. And he talked about meeting a Palestinian person and deciding to go see how that Palestinian person lived because he started engaging logic. And he watched what that process was, having to go across the border and meet. And he said that this thing is all a farce. He said it's all a farce. And I think the thing that was really, really important was he said, he was worried because this thing has been so ingrained in Israelis in that section, in where he was from, that there's no space for logic. There's no space to engage meaningful logic. Here's the thing that I thought was also amazing, and I believe this to my core. I believe, honestly, that this is a setup to come back to America. There's too much synergy between these bad ideas that are happening over in Gaza and the lack of vision and the lack of compassion and mercy that's developing over here in the United States. See, now we talk about mixed marriages. They had all of these laws against being able. They had a movie coming out. I think Love versus State of Virginia, the first interracial couple. What the funny part is, because it was really focused on white women not marrying black men. The statistics are the largest group of people that intermarry are Asian. Asians and white people. White people are next. Latinos are next. Black people at the bottom of the list. Black men ain't marrying women. And if you think I'm lying, turn on your TV. Watch the commercials that are on TV these days. Watch the family commercials and understand that somehow the black man has been removed. They got some white guy sitting up in the front of the family van driving his little mixed kids because they don't want to see that black man anymore. But look at the subtlety of it, though. They're showing you a man and a white man and a black woman and two mixed kids. And what they're telling you is it's all right for him to have sex with that black woman because there's something noble about it. It's part of a grand family plan. But a black man and white woman and mixed kids, somebody got some splaining to do. Somebody's got some splaining to do. Because, see, that violation goes back to the fact that somehow that black man is a sexual terrorist. Or there's some moral or mental defect with that white woman. She doesn't have choice. She was pimped or something like that. Let's get back to this piece right here. I talked about what was going on during times of slavery. It would behoove you to think, all of us to think that during the Holocaust, hear me now, during the Holocaust, that there was not sexual terrorism going on with the Nazis. that the Eastern Jews who are in Palestine right now, in Israel right now, promoting Zionism, didn't see that. That they didn't see that. They couldn't stop it, but they couldn't see it. And now they revisited upon this whole group of people. Because the argument is being made now, brothers and sisters, over and over and over, that Judaism or Zionism cannot coexist with Islam. It cannot. Judaism and Islam can coexist. That's part of an Abrahamic tradition. But Zionism and Islam cannot peacefully coexist. Here in the United States, you have a burgeoning now. Robert Kraft and some other people put up $200 million to fight anti-Semitism because it's exploding. It's exploding. For Robert Kraft, when racism was exploding in the 50s, in the 40s, in the 60s, where were you? In the 70s, where were you? In Boston, Charles Stewart, look it up, accused black people of killing his white wife. And they turned Boston upside down looking for this black man. And it turned out that Charles Stewart had killed his own wife. Two things to remember. Number one, Zionism doesn't apologize. Number two, when you accuse somebody of being a sexual terrorist, there's no room for investigation. We see it right now. We see people being accused of sexual assault. And like I said, that's between them and the law. I don't know. Some cases are legitimate, but let me tell you something. There are some cases, brothers and sisters. Let me give a shout out to my brother. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, little brother. Hope you're doing well. But there are some cases, brothers and sisters, that when you accuse somebody of something sexual, especially when you know once it's out of your mouth, it's almost the first person to the marketplace. You're a sexual predator. No, you're a sexual predator. You're a sexual terrorist. No. Hear what I'm saying, brothers and sisters. When you accuse somebody of that and you put it out there in the main space, the issue is it clouds the market. And the more it clouds the market, and we are, as a society, increasingly lazy. We don't do investigation. We're not in depth looking at information that's been, because there's just so much information. Nobody has energy anymore. Good investigative reporting doesn't happen anymore. It's on its last leg now because people are going, you saw this in the news with our own president talking about, babies' heads are being chopped off. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. It is the equivalent of what we call spitballing. You there's a wall over there. You take your ideas, you just throwing your ideas up against the wall to see which one sticks. This is the latest one. See, I grew up in the 60s, in the 70s, and the 80s, and I remember my grandmother, don't you mess with them white girls. Don't you mess with white girls. I don't care if she like you or not. Don't you mess with white girls. Don't you let your white girl go there. And my grandmother used to say that all the time. Why, Grandma? Why? My grandmother was protecting me. She's trying to tell me at the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, the world is waiting for you to slip up with one of these white girls because they got something for you. My grandmother, my aunt lived through Emmett Till. Emmett Till, accused of sexual assault because he said something to a white lady. He whistled something to a white lady. He had her in a store and said something that she disclaimed on her deathbed. But look at that whole scope. And now we have it here. Like I said, I'm a man of mercy, compassion, and a man of logic. I have many theories about Hamas and the relationship of Hamas with Israel. I said it before when this first happened. I said Israel is everywhere. I tried to do a boycott of Israeli products. Damn, they killed myself. I had to give up Coke. I had to give up McDonald's. I had to give up Panera Bread. No, not Panera Bread. But it was like, damn, what don't they own? What products do not support Israel? And then I began to understand. If you're that ingrained in society with products, if you're that ingrained in this country as a foreign entity whereby you can influence policy, that you can get American law to punish people for saying the truth or saying something that you don't agree with, you can have them incarcerated or banned, or they can lose their jobs. The Muslim community right now is handcuffed. They handcuffed. I'm not saying they soft, but I'm saying they handcuffed because this has gone on long enough. And now you realize that there ain't no wiggle room. See, black folk, we're going to say what we got to say. Hell, we're going to get fired anyway. But for a lot of Muslims, particularly my immigrant Muslim brothers and sisters, you know, the fear in the game is I give you something and make you love it so much that you fear me taking away from. And I make this piece of cake so good that when you eat that cake, you don't ever want to be without that cake. But that's the first thing I'm going to take from you. See, black folk don't understand that. See, I can speak like this, and I'm going to tell you why. I work for me. Allah made me funny. Israel didn't. That's right. And what I want to be said here is something very, very clear. That we have to get back to the business of promoting our own narrative. This is the newest one. Promoting sexual terrorism. And here's the deal too, brothers and sisters. Doing something sexual, violating something sexual, somebody sexually is, there's a lot of crimes where that's at the bottom of the rung. You don't get no lower than hurting a woman or hurting a child sexually. It doesn't get any lower. There's no place for compassion for people like that. I've done shows at prisons. I had to do a show in front of sexual predators. Ain't nobody laugh. You know what? They were just happy to be away from the general population. And society doesn't forgive. You could do something, be a sexual offender. Guess what? You come out of jail, you register as a sexual offender. The issue now is in this space, you're seeing a lot of things be, for lack of a better word, workshopped. So the idea of Hamas, sexually violating all these hostages. Not all of them, but I guess some of them. And let's be honest, I don't know. But I don't think it was widespread if it happened. And I also want to say that this is a bit of a trick, brothers and sisters. This is a bit of a thing. See, in the United States, every election, they find a way to make sure that crime is a big issue in the United States. Right? It's the flip now. Politicians, Democrat, Republican, and in between, never can make a strong argument about crime without talking about sexual crime. That somehow, some way, you can be violated. When you rob, somebody steals something from you. Theft, etc. When you're shot, I mean, look at all the gun violence that's around here today. Ain't nobody running on stopping gun violence. But if you put something like this, that a group of people who see themselves as aggrieved already, and you say that the people that you're afraid of, if they get an opportunity, they're going to sexually violate you, this is game over. And it comes out at a particular time because they're just getting ready to talk about funding for Ukraine and Israel. That Israel is going to need this money, $200 million from Robert Kraft to fight anti-Semitism. And they're getting closer together in terms of Zionism and Judaism. That the case is being made, again, that our religion and these people cannot coexist. If you're already not being seen as human being, what do you think the result is going to be? How do you think they're going to resolve this? I've never seen a truce, ceasefire and a truce, or a ceasefire, whereby people talk about, as soon as we get alive, we're going to go back to fighting. That it was just a ploy to get the folks home, and then we're going to go back to fighting. We're going to accept a number of hostages back. We're going to be right back fighting. The numbers are devastating. The numbers are devastating. If you put a multiplying factor on what life is in Gaza, in these places where the people are oppressed, it is really, really scary in terms of the loss of life. You're talking whole towns. You're talking whole cities in the United States wiped out. And I think the thing that's really interesting, and anybody can feel like they can jump in, because I'm not going to go long today. But I really, really feel in my heart of hearts, I really, really feel in my heart of hearts that the U.S. has a fiduciary responsibility to stop this. Because they did it here in the United States. I started off the top of the show talking about sexual violence against slaves. And we've been led for a long time to believe that sexual violence against slaves was against female slaves. But if you do your research, there was just as much sexual violence done against male slaves. It's just the fact that, we didn't have the words for deviant behavior, sexual predator. We didn't have the word for even what would just be homosexuality. You didn't have it. But it was acted out upon people who were oppressed and could not protect themselves. And it sounds the same right now. Forget Hamas. Forget Hamas. What if Gaza, the people in Gaza, the Palestinians, are now seen as sexual threats? On top of not being seen at all as human, now you get a sexual threat. Well, that's slavery. That's slavery. And you can take all the coalitions, all the protests, all of the boycotts that you want. But once this idea begins to seep into the mind of these people who already have a perceived understanding and vision and interpretation of the people in Gaza, this is game over. Can you see the argument now? Do you support Hamas being sexual terrorists? Of course not. They're going to make you say it. Now, I don't want to be mean-spirited. But too often, we let this go by. We had a Me Too movement, and now we have the movement out of New York, with Bad Boy and things like that. I don't know P. Diddy. I don't know these folks. I know some folks who are close to me, like family to me, who have gone through situations where it wasn't the act, it was the accusation. See, when you throw this out here, brothers and sisters, say somebody said, Preacher Moss stole $100,000. What if somebody said, Preacher Moss stole $100,000? Now, there are going to be those of you who call me and go, hey man, you still $100 million. I'm saying, I didn't take the money. But if it's put out on social media, which this is beginning to put out on, if it's put out on social media, I don't know who that message goes to. I don't know who's receiving this information, this incorrect information. And in the judicial system, let's be honest. If I stole $100,000, they believe I did, or they have credible evidence, they're going to make me do a perp walk. And everybody and their mama's going to be out there with their camera. There you go, there you go. And they're going to do the perp walk. And I'm going to go through a justice system that's going to take a year, 2 years before my case even comes up. And they'll find me innocent, but it doesn't matter because for 2 years up to that point, people thought I stole $100,000. That's the way the game is played, brothers and sisters. That's why this is a danger. That's why we don't have, we need to restart, recalibrate our thinking about what these people are doing. That's why we need to cut off some of the social media and start talking to one another. I looked on my phone. I looked on my phone and just said, I Googled Hamas and sexual assault. And it was tried in 2016. was tried in 2009. They said a Hamas leader was killed by Hamas because he was homosexual. I've seen all this stuff before. It's on the internet if you want to go look. But my point is, hear what I'm saying. And this is very, I'm trying to verbalize this. I'm not saying it can happen. I'm saying it's already happened. I'm saying that there's a blueprint out there right now. I'm saying, brothers and sisters, stand your ground. What is that about? The law, stand your ground. This is an outgrowth of these different type of arguments that have been made about protecting white life, protecting white womanhood. Now it's protecting Israel, protecting Israeli womanhood. When the truth ain't nobody running behind Israeli women. Can't get to them. You got Palestinians living in a space 2 miles long on top of each other for the last 40 years. You got blockades. You have blockades. You have checkpoints. You can't even get into Israel. But now we're saying, oh, these Hamas is sexual terrorists because you had some people who were held hostage. That was wrong. But now it's the question of the quality of the care. Question of the quality of the care. Princess, do you really believe that the Palestinian hostages weren't abused? Do you really believe that the hostages in Palestine probably weren't? That there was some sexual abuse that happened? Of course. Of course. Listen, evil knows no bounds. It only knows opportunity. And if we begin to look at this over and over and over and over and over again, the argument becomes bigger and more defined that we have to smash it. We have to, at the root of it, cut it off. Now, I put this subject up warning they're inventing sexual terrorists. You know why? I've seen it before. You know, if you ever read the FBI files and they talk about King, they try to say King was a sexual deviant. Because people believe that was the one thing that could discredit King to his people. They did it with Elijah Muhammad. That if you could discredit anything, it'd be sexual. They did it all over. They tried to say Malcolm X was engaged in homosexual stuff. Look, I'm giving you facts that you probably already know, and if you don't know, now you do. Again, over and over and over again, we begin to lose the conversation. And we're not speaking up. Here are the facts. And I'm going to get out of here early today because I'm tired and I'm sleepy. But here are the facts, brothers and sisters. That the narrative put out there is a narrative that was put out by the Germans about the Jews in Eastern Europe. It's the same playbook. The characterization of Palestinians is much the same as the characterization of Eastern European Jews who had little to no connection with Palestine at that point. That Britain came, colonized a place, and gave them they got them out of Eastern Europe. The same people who are supporting Israel right now, they kicked them out. And the term is over and over and over again that these are promises, negotiations that are not fulfilled, that are not honored. The same in the United States. What, 4,000 or 5,000 plus treaties, all of them broken, and then it was by force, by the army. We see this over and over and over again. We get tired of it. I get tired of it. Get tired of talking. So tonight, I'm going to end on that. I'm going to ask everybody to please start having conversations that are real conversations about what you see going on around you. Around you. You know, what is this, 2023? You better believe that a young black man in the wrong place, whether it's in the North or the South, behind some racial stuff, some black-white stuff, can wind up hurt, injured, or dead. So you better believe, I mean this, and we've had some instances, you better believe if your oppressor has a chance to make you look like them, the them they've been hiding, they don't tell on themselves, they tell on you. If they can do that and put you in the spotlight, that allows them to even operate even more freely. This idea with Hamas, they tried it with the Black Panthers. Black Panthers too strong. They had a minister of information. And the minister of information spit that stuff back so quickly, but he didn't talk to the people. The minister of information didn't talk to the people who were spreading lies. They talked to the people that the lies were being spread to. Ingenious. I want to say metaphorically brilliant. But we don't have that now. And the instances and examples of the past used to break this behavior, we don't pay attention to anymore. We have visible acts of I want to say intellectual and educational terrorism happen in front of us. If you don't want to know about critical race theory, which, by the way, that's something they study in college. They don't study it in elementary school. Critical race theory is not a part of elementary curriculum. It's just not. If you're telling kids these are the truth about history, that's history. But if you really want to know about critical race theory, critical race, the word is critical. Critical will be applied to anything. Critical religious theory, critical finance theory, right? Critical political theory. Because it's race, it now is a question of character. And lies that have been told are now being peeled back, dissected. So the whole idea of education, race, and things like that, this is the same as sexual terrorism. All right, I'm going to go. You guys have been amazing. Hope to see you soon. Stay blessed. I'll be back with you next week, inshallah. Shout out to Sister Satana. She wasn't able to make it today. She's trying to handle some end of the year business. Sister, we miss you. We'll see you next week. Listen, all you guys, just do me a favor. Just think. Think out loud. You know, I'm finding now that, while we don't have a huge reach, we have a bigger reach than I thought we had. And people in Australia talk about these things when they see the Shout Out Show. People in Houston and London when they talk about the Shout Out Show. People in Canada shout out. People all the way in South Africa reach out and say, hey man, what is this about? Because it's a thing about being conscious, because you have to be conscious to fight for the things you believe in. You have to be conscious to protect those who can't protect themselves. And more importantly, you have to be conscious to protect history and preserve history. All right. I'm out of here. Take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Keep thinking.